Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're delighted to have you here. Wishing you had a very lovely Thanksgiving time and hopefully a wonderful holiday season coming up. So, I'd like to call this meeting to order. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the State Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Department of Education, Secretary of State's office, and notice has been given to the State House press corps, the Governor's office, and the State Board agenda subscribers. And as a quorum is present, this meeting will now come to order. May I please have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you very much, Board Member Bennett. May I please have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Board Member Berry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. For those muted, maybe raise your hand. Ms. Board Member Finaro. Thank you. And with that, we will adjourn to executive session. Whereas, in order to protect the personal privacy and to avoid situations wherein the public interest might be disturbed, the Open Public Meetings Act permits public bodies to exclude the public from that portion of a meeting at which certain matters are discussed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that consistent with provision NJSA 1210:4-12B, the State Board of Education will now adjourn to executive session to discuss personnel and legal matters. May I please have a motion? Thank you very much, Board Member Bennett. May I please have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Board Member Berry. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed, please say nay. We'll go into, it passes, the board will now go into executive session. We will be back about 10 a.m. Thank you very much. Okay, you're ready. I am. Are you? Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Happy December. I hope Thanksgiving was lovely. Good to see all the smiling faces, and for you tuning in, thank you very much. I'd like to first please call our meeting to adjourn from executive session, whereas in order to protect the, I'm sorry, let me turn the page. I'd like to resume the public meeting. Whereas, consistent with the provision of NJSA 10:4-12B, the State Board will now adjourn from executive session to resume the open session portion of our meeting. May I please have a motion? Motion. Thank you very much. Board Member Pena, may I please have a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor? I appreciate it. Board Member Shahada, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Please say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. I'd like to please ask Board Member Dr. Keenan if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America. It stands one nation.
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. So we're starting out the month with a bang, and on our state board meetings, they are accessible to the public and viewing on the YouTube channel on the YouTube channel. And I would like to advise you that the YouTube provides readily accessible languages and translation options with closed captioning. If you are viewing the simulcast at this time, you can use the settings option in YouTube for information about subtitles, automatic translations, and closed captioning in various languages. Our meeting minutes from November 6, 2024. I'd like to ask the board members to please vote on the minutes. I'm sure you've reviewed them. May I please have a motion to accept them? Motion. Thank you very much. May I please have a second? Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Yes. An abstention. Thank you.
Abstain.
Thank you. The State Board will not be receiving public testimony today as there are no educational topics up for discussion. For the month of January, the State Board will receive public testimony on the proposed amendments to Chapter 32, State School District Operations, related to the state excused absence for civic events. Additionally, the State Board will also receive testimony from registered members of the public on any educational topic of their choice, as the January public testimony session is an open topic public testimony session. Interested members of the public may register for public testimony beginning on December 19th until noon on January 2nd, 2025. We have 4 things to go over in my report today, and I'd like to begin by introducing Anna Paskowitz, our wonderful student for us. She's a senior at Palmyra High School in Burlington County, my home county. Her advisors are Ms. Kelly Jones and Ms. Kim Martino. I believe Ms. Jones is here. If you want to stand up, thank you for coming. Thank you. And now we'd love to hear the student report. Thank you.
Thank you, President Goldenberg, and good morning, everyone. This month, I wanted to discuss something being used less and less in schools: cell phones. In recent years, states such as Ohio, Indiana, South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana have passed statewide laws limiting cell phone usage in schools. This year, many school districts throughout New Jersey have followed suit, cracking down on cell phone usage by enforcing stricter rules regarding cell phones, or in some cases, banning them altogether. There is no denying that cell phones can be a distraction in an educational setting. However, there are a multitude of effects this has on students, both positive and negative. Some schools have banned cell phone use strictly during class time, which is helpful to teachers, giving them the ability to teach students without the distraction of cellular devices. Many schools have taken it a step farther, including Palmyra High School, where I attend, and have implemented a full cell phone ban for the school year. This includes during lunch, in the hallways, and during study halls. Any student seen using a cell phone during school hours is subject to their phone being confiscated for failure to follow the rules. Many of the specifics are left up to individual teachers, such as whether they require students to put phones in a pocket chart or just away in a bag, and whether students are given a warning before enforcing punishments. At the start of the school year, and along with the announcement of this policy, many students were very upset with the phone ban, feeling as though they should be able to use their phone when not in class, or at least in the cafeteria and study halls. As this ban has remained in full force, many students are now beginning to see some of the positives of the policy, though others still haven't fully come around. To start with the positives, most of my classmates agree that they feel much more productive with any free time. Personally, I can say that for work done in class, students are also using free time to socialize with one another. Many students bring a deck of the policy. Some students have gone so far as to say their grades are better without the distraction of a cell phone. They can pay better attention in class, and therefore are more living overall less reliant on it outside of school, and don't consider cell phones as necessary as they did before. The positives to cell phone bans are certainly a step in the right direction. However, there is still room for improvement. One of the things students complain about the most surrounding the policy is the prohibiting of communication with parents or guardians. Students text their parents about all sorts of things, including getting picked up from school, after-school plans, and more. Many students also miss being able to check certain things on their phone that they aren't able to on a laptop, such as reviewing something in their camera roll or notes app. Mira Moran, a senior at Palmyra, says, "I feel the phone policy has made me more productive, but I also use my phone for school-related stuff like applying to colleges. I also started playing more games on the Chromebook." This shines a light on another factor of the policy that remains a battle: the use of gaming websites on school-issued laptops. The administration has made an effort to restrict any websites that may be considered games as a means of extending restrictions on non-educational screen usage. However, students are often able to find available games online. Many students say that since the cell phone ban, they are more likely to play games on the computer than they were before. Some say that they sometimes struggle to resist the temptation to play an online game even when a teacher is instructing, whereas before the policy was enforced, students were able to take a brain break on their phones during a lunch period and then pay better attention during class, which is certainly something to be considered when implementing phone policies. It isn't controversial to say that cell phones are an often harmful distraction in schools. However, the way to deal with this issue isn't so clear-cut. Many schools across the state are focusing their attention and efforts toward implementing new phone restrictions, and it's important that the student perspective, whether positive or negative, be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. So when this decision was made in Palmyra, did the students come and testify at the school board meeting?
I don't believe so, no.
What about the parents?
I don't think so.
Really? Thank you. Any other questions at this time?
And I just want to clarify, it was the other students that were doing TikTok instead of their homework, right? That wasn't you.
Certainly not
Yeah.
you. Thank you. We appreciate very much, and this is very important for us to hear, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we'll go ahead and go to our school board committee reports. Dr. Johnson, would you like to go ahead and speak about the Instructional Policy Committee?
Good morning. The Instructional Policy Committee met on November 15, 2024 to discuss the 2003-24 statewide assessment results. excuse me, since this item is on today's agenda, I will forego my report.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Bob Rove, would you like to discuss the November 21st Administrative Policy Committee meeting?
I'd be happy to. The Administrative Policy Committee met on November 21st, this year 2024, to discuss Chapter 32, School District Operations, amendments to address excused absences for students in grades 6 through 12 to attend a civic event. Since this item is on today's agenda for first discussion, I will forego my report.
Okay, now we have a very special recognition, and it's for our New Jersey educational professionals. And I would like to extend a special welcome today to today's honorees and special guests. The dedicated educators and outstanding students that you represent are why we are honored to take this opportunity today to celebrate your accomplishments this year and every year. It's important that we recognize New Jersey's exemplary leaders and administrators. All of you, whether you were in a school or a district administrator or a family member who came to celebrate your family members, or a friend or a colleague who support our honorees, please know that we recognize and appreciate all that each of you do for our students. Today, we have the privilege of honoring the Superintendent of the Year, the School Business Administrator of the Year, and the Visionary Principals of the Year. So we'll begin with the first recipient that we honor today for the 2025 Jersey Superintendent of the Year Award. This award recognizes superintendents who are remarkable education leaders and who have vision and imagination, and above all, the empathy for the students that they serve. Thank you for the New Jersey Association of School Administrators for your commitment to this annual program. It is my pleasure to ask Dr. Michael LaSousa, President of the New Jersey Association of School Administrators, to introduce our 2025 New Jersey Superintendent of the Year. Dr. LaSousa, if you could please come to the podium and introduce the deserving recipient and their guests.
Good morning, and thank you, President Goldenberg. Thank you, members of the State Board of Education. Thank you, Commissioner Damer. Thank you, members of the Department of Education, and all of the guests who are here with us today. Like President Goldenberg said, my name is Mike LaSousa. I'm the immediate past president of the NJASA, and I'm the superintendent of the school district of the Chathams. It is a great honor for me to present the NJASA selection of the 2025 New Jersey Superintendent of the Year, Jack Hurley, Chief Education Officer of the Rutherford School District. Mr. Hurley is now a contender for the National Superintendent of the Year Award from the American Association of School Administrators. In September, NJASA also recognized the other regional superintendents of the year, including Dr. Tammy Kramer of the Neptune Township Schools and Thomas Farrell of the Brick Township Public School District. NJASA introduced the 3 regional superintendents of the year at the annual fall workshop in Atlantic City. AASA will celebrate each state representative and announce the National Superintendent of the Year at its National Conference on Education in March 2025. This prestigious award, now in its 38th year, honors the talent and vision of educational leaders across the United States. The selection qualifications for the State and National Superintendent of the Year include meeting the needs of students, demonstrating communication strength, a commitment to professional development and growth, and significant community involvement. Additionally, at the state and regional levels, NJASA has a qualification that addresses service with the county affiliate and NJASA at large. Kudos to Jack Hurley for a career spanning 47 years in the Rutherford Public Schools, which is a pre-K through 12 school district serving about 2,600 students. I did say 47 years. Appointed Chief Education Officer in 2014, his earlier roles included teacher, supervisor, assistant principal, and high school principal. Mr. Hurley's extensive experience and commitment to the district have established him as a respected leader, admired by staff, admired by the Board of Education, and admired by peers in other districts. During his superintendency, Jack Hurley introduced preschool classes, an 18 to 21 transition program, and a restructuring of school facilities for enhanced space and curriculum expansion. A $45 million referendum passed in 2019 and completed in 2023 improved and expanded the district's 6 buildings. This year, the district is implementing Profile of a Graduate to unify curricular and growth. It is a Today, joining Jack will be his
Thank you very much to the NJASA and to Dr. LaSousa, and congratulations again to Dr. Hurley. Thank you. And now we will honor and recognize the School Business Administrator of the Year. It is our next honoree. The New Jersey Association of School Business Officials annually presents this award to an individual who demonstrates leadership, service to the profession, and is involved in so many projects that promote excellence in school business administration. I would like to thank New Jersey Association of School Business Officials for making this program possible, as it remains a hallmark achievement in the school business field. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Matt Clark, Assistant Executive Director of the New Jersey Association of School Business Officials, to introduce this year's recipient. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you, President Goldenberg and the State Board of Education, along with Acting Commissioner Damer and the New Jersey Department of Education. I see many friends in the audience that I've had the pleasure of meeting with over the past few years. For today's recognition especially, we're very excited to go ahead and talk about our recipient. Each year, members of the New Jersey Association of School Business Officials select 6 to the committee, then choose one of the 6 in the school as its School Business Administrator of the Year. This year's selection is known by many, Dr. Diane Fox. She's the Assistant Superintendent for Business and the Board Secretary at the Middle Township Public Schools in Cape May County, where she has been since 2012. She currently oversees a $60 million budget, 2,900 students that encompass 4 schools from preschool through grade 12. Diane is the epitome of dedication and excellence in educational administration with a focus on business operations. Diane has overseen large construction projects, recently a $25 million bond referendum, and she was one of the leads for starting full-day preschool. Diane has 24 years of committed service. She has left an indelible mark on the Middle Township School District and beyond. Diane's commitment to service shows as she has filled many roles outside of the district. Diane has served as a New Jersey ASBO trustee, New Jersey ASBO president, chair member, and member to every committee of the New Jersey ASBO group. In addition, she has been the Cape May County ASBO president. She has also served as the reader for the ASBO International Annual Conference and the Meritorious Budget Award Committee. Diane is committed to bettering herself every day. So she doesn't know how to go ahead and let the grass grow beneath her feet. Diane is committed to bettering herself by, she went on and received her PhD in organizational leadership with a K-12 educational focus, and has completed her certificate in education finance from the Georgetown University, sponsored by ASBO International. She is described by many as knowledgeable, thorough, and a do-the-right-thing professional. Diane keeps all things in perspective and goes beyond by taking on additional responsibilities, which makes all organizations and who work with her better. A recurrent theme for BAs is very simple, and that's what Diane, you'll see in Diane. Diane loves family life. She and her husband of 35 years, Rodney, take pride in their 3 children's accomplishments. As said by a retired BA recently, Diane is one of the best. Diane personifies the Distinguished Service Award and School Business Administrator of the Year. It's the relationships she's built with her peers, colleagues, and staff that she cherishes. And more importantly, it's her knowing that each year when the students of Middle Township High School walk across the stage to receive their diploma, she can take pride in the fact that she had a little something to do with it, especially with their success. With that, I am happy to present the 2024 New Jersey School Business Administrator of the Year, Dr. Diane Fox from the Middle Township Public Schools. Dr. Diane Fox is accompanied by her husband, Rodney Fox.
And last but not least, we have the Visionary Principal of the Year as we recognize the accomplishments. This is the 23rd cohort to be honored for providing leadership that inspires excellence in learning and teaching. Thank you to the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association for your commitment to this annual program. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce Ms. Karen Bingert, Executive Director of the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association, to introduce this year's recipient. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. I would like to first thank President Goldenberg, Acting Commissioner Damer, the entire State Board of Ed, the Department of Education, and especially two of my colleagues back there, Mary Reese and Denise Heckberger, who are integral in this selection process and celebratory process for principals. So principals are the second most impactful people in schools after teachers. And when you hear a little bit about Lindsay and Neil, you will understand exactly why they so richly deserve this recognition. So it's my honor this morning to introduce to you the NJPSA Visionary Elementary School Principal of the Year, Dr. Lindsay Goditis, the principal of Franklin Township School in Quakertown. Dr. Goditis has leveraged her passion for sustainability, digital instruction, and early childhood education to fulfill the school's mission of nurturing responsible, respectful members of a democratic society. Under Lindsay's leadership, the school has earned, for the past 4 years, silver certification through the Sustainable Jersey for Schools program for its numerous sustainability initiatives that enrich learning and elevate school culture. For example, students have the chance to learn and practice electric vehicle engineering and energy conservation. Through the Empowered Schools program, the 5th grade students perform regular, get this, energy audits at the school and use their findings to propose changes that make Franklin Township a better steward of the environment. These endeavors have engaged students from preschool to 8th grade by not only fostering hands-on learning, but also instilling a sense of responsibility and environmental consciousness among students. Lindsay has also secured a $10,000 award through Sustainable Jersey for Schools to establish a hydroponics program. Related lessons will be provided to all students during the STEAM class, and community partnerships will be formed to present to students on farming and hydroponics. For the last 2 years, through Dr. Goditis' initiative, Franklin Township received funds to expand access to high-quality preschool programs through the Preschool Expansion Aid. In addition to these efforts, Lindsay has integrated principles of trauma-informed care into the school's teaching culture through the DREAMS project. As part of Dr. Goditis' recognition, NJPSA has awarded Franklin Township Schools $10,000, which Lindsay will use to assist the PTA in creation of an outdoor classroom. Additional support for the Nurtured Heart efforts will be included in the DREAMS project, and NJPSA provided Lindsay with a $2,500 personal award. She also received special recognition as a National Distinguished Principal by the National Association of Elementary School Principals. It is apparent that Lindsay implements her personal vision daily at Franklin Township School. She says, "I will be an honest and collaborative leader who inspires others while having a strong work ethic. I will be a transparent communicator who will support the academic, personal, and professional growth of students, staff, and myself." And as we were talking before, her staff is just besides themselves excited that their principal has earned this recognition, as I know we all are as well. Please join me in welcoming up Dr. Lindsay Goditis, her husband, Steve Timko, and Mary Reese and Denise Heckberger from NJPSA to be a part of this celebration with us.
She runs the Broadway Bronze Group.
Aren't I the lucky one? I have two of these today, which is just wonderful. It is really a pleasure to introduce to you the NJPSA Visionary Secondary School Principal of the Year, Dr. Neil Birdie, the former principal of the John A. Carusi Middle School, Neil's accomplishments actually recently resulted in his selection as the Director of Secondary Education in Cherry Hill, where his leadership can now support more schools, not just his former middle school. When Dr. Birdie's middle school students returned from remote learning after the pandemic, he realized different structures were needed to make in-school education effective again. Together with his staff, Neil introduced new academic and social initiatives entitled Carusi Cares, a framework that addresses the school's expectations and values around the way members of the school community conduct themselves. Carusi Cares asks each student and staff member to care for themselves, care for their school, and care for others. The belief is that if everyone accomplishes these goals, Carusi Middle School will be a better place to learn, to work, and to grow. Additional structures were introduced at Carusi, including Mustang mentoring, opportunities for service learning, space-safe clubs, and academic intervention. Dr. Birdie added the position of student advocate, who is charged with helping students in need. After the programs were in place, attendance increased and disciplinary infractions decreased. As part of Dr. Birdie's recognition, NJPSA has awarded Carusi Middle School $10,000, which Neil used to expand extracurricular activities. In addition, NJPSA provided Neil with a $2,500 award himself. He also received special recognition by the National Association of Secondary School Principals as the State Principal of the Year. In the recent NJPSA video that we did on each of our winners that highlighted Neil's accomplishments, he commented, "I have this conversation with kids frequently because I know they're not going to remember the math test or the 5-paragraph essay. They're going to remember the friendships that they made at Carusi Middle School. They're going to remember the teachers who were life-changing for them. They're going to remember the connections they made beyond the classrooms. And hopefully, they will find their passion. Something will be ignited inside them and inspire them to find their greater purpose." That's what Carusi Middle School is all about. And ladies and gentlemen, I would argue that's precisely what Neil Birdie is all about. Please join me in welcoming up Neil, his wife Jessica, again Mary, and Denise from NJPSA to celebrate his accomplishment. And his superintendent, Dr. Kwame Morton. We're going to do those down behind the podium.
Yes, please.
Good. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you so much, everyone. Neil Birdie.
So thank you to the NJPSA and Ms. Karen Binger, and congratulations to Dr. Lindsay Goditis and Dr. Neil Birdie. It's a true pleasure to showcase their accomplishments and uplift New Jersey's remarkable educators and administrators with examples like this. Thank you to our distinguished guests who joined us today in order to provide invaluable support every day to these leaders. And I finally would like to congratulate all honorees for their accomplishments and unwavering service to students in innovative and definitely life-changing ways. So thank you so much. This part, I can speak for the board, I hope, saying that this is part of the happiest thing that we get to do, is to recognize people who inspire kids and their passion. So thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate you. Anybody else want to say anything? If not, we'll keep going. So next we have petitions for rulemaking. The State Board recently received 2 petitions for rulemaking related to requirements for certain instructional certificates. The first request was submitted by Spiro Zambos on September 16th. Mr. Zambos' petition request questioned why a person who did not go to college but is able to pass state standardized tests that demonstrate the person's level of education is equivalent to people with a college degree in specific subject matters, and why they'd be prevented from earning an alternate path teaching certificate. Mr. Zambos' request was also questioning why a person who took extra courses that were irrelevant to the field of study or degree but resulted in a lower grade point average should be punished and deemed uneducated when a person who has earned a degree and passed all the practice tests. After due consideration pursuant to the law, Acting Commissioner Damer and I denied the petition, in part because of existing requirements and flexibilities ensure that students are being taught by properly certified, well-trained, and effective educators who meet the needs of their communities while increasing diversity and supply of educators and maintaining New Jersey's high standards for educators. The second request was submitted by Jeremiah Price Williams on October 17th. Mr. Price Williams' request questioned why 5% margin of error for the praxis passing score when a candidate's grade point average is 3.5 or higher applies to only a select few tests and not the commissioner-approved test of basic reading, writing, and mathematical skills praxis core. The petitioner stated that the department should accept a score on the praxis core that is within a 5% margin of error if the candidate's grade point average is 3.5 or higher. After due consideration pursuant to the law, Acting Commissioner Damer and I also denied this petition, in part because the limited certificate of eligibility, the CE pilot program, also exempts certain candidates from having to achieve a minimum score of a commissioner-approved test of basic reading, writing, and mathematical skills. To the extent the petition sought to amend the limited CE regulations to allow a candidate to receive 2 exemptions of the regular CE requirements, such an amendment would not be permitted by state law. Full details of both of these petitions and denials can be found on the Petitions for Rulemaking webpage at newjersey.gov/education/code/petition/final/24. And now, sir, thank you.
So before we get into commissioner reports, we heard about some of the best school leaders in the state are here today. So I invite all of you. I know we've got a riveting agenda, but some of you need to get back to work to make sure that these schools don't fall apart. So if anybody needs to go, please go ahead and go. Thanks.
Congratulations again.
Congratulations again. Absolutely.
No worries.
And so for the commissioner's report today, I'd like to share results from the spring 2024 statewide assessment administration. We just saw the dedicated leaders in the state that were recognized, and they've committed themselves to meeting the needs of every one of our students throughout the state. The statewide assessment results serve as a rich source of data for determining areas of need and a useful metric for monitoring student performance and growth. We know these results do not fully describe the complexities of the depth and breadth of a child's complete learning experience, but these data are important and help us understand overall performance trends. There's a lot of stuff to get through today, so we'll try to break this up as much as we can to go through it in piecemeal fashion and allow for time for board members to ask questions. And leading us here today are Dr. Jordan Schiff and John Baxani, who will go through each of these results for you and address any questions you might have. So take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, President Goldberg, Vice President Johnson, and members of the State Board of Education. Today we present the results from the spring 2024 statewide assessments. We will start with an overview of the major takeaways from the results and how the department is helping to support these findings. Next, we will go through the results of the spring 2024 assessment. And throughout the presentation, we will highlight initiatives and programs being offered to support local educational agencies improve student outcomes. The three major takeaways from the results from the 2024 administration are, first, that the student performance in ELA and mathematics continue to increase, though the performance is still below pre-pandemic results. The science results remain consistent with the implementation of the new assessment through this year and are significantly below the ELA and mathematics performance. And third, the achievement gaps between high-performing groups of students and the lowest performing groups remain significant. Those small improvements have been observed in both ELA and mathematics. The department has enacted multiple initiatives to support ELAs for continued improvement on student outcomes. For ELA and mathematics, some of the initiatives include the high-impact tutoring grants awarded last year, as well as the implementation of the Rapid and Rapid Plus programs for supporting literacy through grade 6. For science, New Jersey has joined the collaboration for the Open SciEd project to help provide students with instructional materials and professional development that is aligned to the New Jersey student learning standards for science. We will discuss these initiatives and how they interact with the work that is done at the local level later in the presentation. My colleague, Director of Assessment, Mr. John Bozani, will now share the NJSLA results for the 2023-2024 school year. Mr. Bozani.
Thank you, Dr. Schiff. Here we can see the overall trends since the inception of the trend line in 2016. It is important to note the science assessment was field tested in 2018 and had the first operational administration in the 2018-19 school year, which is why there are less data points for the trend of this assessment. When we aggregate the data across all tested grades and include all students, we find that the performance of New Jersey students was trending towards an increase from 2016 to 2019 in both mathematics and English language arts. There's no data listed for 2020 or 2021, as the NJSLA was not administered those years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Resuming administration in 2022, the results were as expected and demonstrated a performance decline in all subjects. Moving into 2023, the data shows that there is improvement in performance in all subjects when all grades are aggregated. 2024 continued to show the recovery in ELA and math proficiency rates, but science has remained fairly consistent since the introduction of the assessment. In 2022, the requirement to participate in the advanced mathematics assessments for geometry and algebra 2 changed. Students enrolled in these courses were not required to participate unless it was their first assessment in high school. This had the effect of only the most advanced mathematics students participating in the assessments, and as a result, showed an increase in overall performance. This change remained in effect for 2024. The red dashed line represents the mathematics results for grades 3 to 8 and Algebra 1, excluding Geometry and Algebra 2. The performance on the science assessment remains well below the performance on mathematics and English language arts. There are currently two conditions we can link to the performance. First, The implementation of the NGSS Next Generation Science Standards represented a major change in pedagogical approach from the New Jersey core curriculum standards. Second, there was a shift from an emphasis on measuring rote memorization of facts and definitions with the NJASC and NJBCT assessments to an emphasis on measuring the student's ability to use science and engineering practices to further their understanding of new and novel phenomena. This slide shows the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations, levels 4 and 5, on each English Language Arts assessment by grade. As we look across the charts and focus on the results from 2023 and 2024, the data shows that grades 3, 6, and 9 have shown improvement. Grades 5, 7, and 8 demonstrated a decrease from 2023 to 2024, and grade 4 demonstrated the same results in both years. If we move to look at the results pre-pandemic to most recent, the data shows that grades 3 through 8 are still recovering and have not yet reached the levels of proficiency that were demonstrated pre-pandemic. Grade 9, however, is displaying a significant increase from last year and also 2% higher proficiency rates than were observed in 2019.
Several significant department efforts are targeted to improve the quality of literacy instruction and ultimately student performance statewide. Last month, the department announced the formation and launch of a new working group on student literacy established under the recently signed legislation, Public Law 2024, Chapter 52. This initiative is a key step forward, strengthening foundational literacy instruction in New Jersey schools, ensuring that all students, including multilingual learners and students with disabilities, receive high-quality, evidence-based literacy instruction. The working group, comprised of education experts from across the state, have been tasked with making critical recommendations to the department on the implementation of effective literacy strategies, evidence-based screening methods, and criteria for high-quality instructional materials. The group will also explore ways to expand professional learning opportunities for educators to enhance their capacity to teach literacy effectively. In late August, the New Jersey Department of Education was awarded $50 million over a 5-year period in the new Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant from the U.S. Department of Education. This grant will support New Jersey school communities in advancing literacy skills, including pre-literacy skills, reading and writing, for children throughout their academic careers, and an emphasis on closing achievement and opportunity gaps. As one of 23 state education agencies receiving funding, New Jersey has been awarded the largest Year 1 grant in the largest ever round of CLSD grant awards. This grant will significantly expand the development and implementation of evidence-based literacy programs to ensure students achieve key milestones, such as reading on grade level by 3rd grade, a critical predictor of future academic success. Additionally, you will recall the inclusion of evidence-based foundational literacy elements into the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in English Language Arts, adopted last year by you in October. In service to those revisions and to expand research-based teaching of reading and writing for all students, the department developed a series of learning acceleration professional learning opportunities to LEAs. Our 2 foundational literacy programs entitled the Reading Acceleration Professionally Integrated Development, or RAPID, for grades K through 3, and the complementary RAPID Plus for grades 4 through 6 have been designed to expand elementary teachers' knowledge of the research base and how proficient reading and writing can be developed, and how student outcomes can be improved through effective identification and evidence-based interventions. An educator preparation program component of RAPID is supporting the alignment of pre-service teacher programs at our state colleges and universities to the revised Chapter 9 requirements that support a focus on more advanced literacy training for our educators.
This slide shows the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations, again levels 4 and 5, on each mathematics assessment by grade or course. With few exceptions, student performance has increased in mathematics. Grades 4 and 5 students demonstrated performance consistent with 2023 administration, and the students taking the geometry test demonstrated a minor decrease in proficiency. The geometry and algebra 2 stand out for large gains and high performance in both 2022 and 2023, and in algebra 2 in 2024. There are other factors for these assessments. Again, in 2022, the requirement of which students must test changed for geometry and algebra 2. Students enrolled in those courses were only required to test if this was their first test in high school for mathematics, or if they were enrolled in the course in middle school. Students enrolled in the course but who had already completed their federally mandated testing had the option to participate at their district's discretion. This means that only our most advanced mathematics students were participating in these assessments, and in turn, it would be expected that the overall performance would increase. Similarly, for grade 8 performance, these results are not representative of all grade 8 mathematics students. Over 30% of all grade 8 students were enrolled in Algebra 1 and therefore would not have participated in the grade 8 assessment.
High-impact tutoring has been identified as a profoundly effective, research-based method LEAs have leveraged to optimize learning acceleration. Last year, we released our $52 million tutoring initiative. In November, we awarded the majority of funds, over $41 million, to 243 local education agencies to implement their proposed programs that prioritize students in grades 3 and 4. A second round of 57 grantees was awarded in March of this year. To date, over 60,000 students have been served by the High Impact Tutoring Grant across almost 300 grantees. Grantees are reporting notable and early locally assessed gains in mathematics specifically. It is important to note that the majority of grantees did not begin their programs until after the spring NJSLA assessment administration. So we haven't seen the state level impact of this program yet. The department has also invested in the implementation of professional learning and resource development to improve math instruction. Professional learning for mathematics educators has been provided on the 2023 NJSLS mathematics, with a focus on data literacy, fractions, and early numeracy skill development. In addition, guidance has been developed to assist curriculum developers and educators to prioritize content emphases for both curriculum development and considerations of instructional time, with grade and course level specificity. New resources supporting LEAs in integrating climate education and information literacy in mathematics instruction has also been developed with an eye on interdisciplinary learning. Madam President, we propose to pause at this point to answer any questions that the board may have.
I think that'd be wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you. I can start with a question if I might.
Please.
So the $50 million CLSD grant that was awarded to New Jersey, it's an amazing amount of money. Are we dividing that by 10 years, 20 years, 3 years? How do we anticipate using it? 5 years?
Over a 5-year period of time. Yeah.
And will it be divided between all the school districts, or how do you anticipate for the literacy grant to be utilized?
The literacy grant will provide competitive grants across 7 or 8 different specific areas that were identified within that grant, including how to address the professional capacity needs of school districts, learning how to implement evidence-based literacy instruction, all the way to early literacy work, birth through to 3 years old, all the way up to high school students that may be having difficulty with literacy. So each of these grant opportunities, and they'll be staggered through the 5-year period of time, will help to address literacy across the full scope. So districts will have the opportunity to apply for these grants.
I see. And regarding that, are we in possession of the 50 million, or is that from the federal government at this point, that they're holding part of it?
So it's a federal grant, and typically the way those work is, so this one is spaced out over 5 years. That's the way it was structured. It's not an equal installment each year because we have different work that we're doing each year. As we use it, we request it from the feds, and then they give it to us. So that it's essentially like a bank account that we draw down from.
But is it guaranteed to come to New Jersey despite a change in administration? I'm just concerned.
Guarantee is a tricky word, but it's been awarded, and we have full anticipation of getting it across all 5 years.
Thank you. How about other questions? Arcilio, I see your hand up, sir.
Hi, Madam President. Thank you very much. I just have a question regarding, you mentioned, so first of all, let me mention, I'm encouraged to learn about the various initiatives that includes the Literacy Working Group, as Madam President just mentioned, the CLSD grant, Rapid Education Preparation Program. You mentioned for math, high impact tutoring grant and funding to offer high impact tutoring. Is so that's for math. Do we have something equivalent for literacy, or is the CLSD grant also able to provide high impact tutoring?
Thank you for the question. High impact tutoring is offered in both ELA and mathematics, and districts have their choice based upon the needs of the children in their district, whether to focus on math only, literacy only, or a combination of the two.
All right, so it's the discretion of the school district then?
It's a school district discretion, yes.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And just to parlay that, you said there were 300 students who have taken advantage so far of the tutoring? Did I misunderstand?
300 districts, over
300
60,000 students, and continuing to grow.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, please. Board Member Pena.
On now. So I was just looking at the chart on mathematics 2016 to 2024, page 9. And there is a striking difference when you look at the bar charts in terms of proficiency, meeting expectations or exceeding expectations between grade 8 and Algebra 1. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I find it incredible that at the 8th grade level, we have such low, not even 20% of the students are meeting those expectations. And then the following year, Algebra 1, they're doing so much better. And I understand that some districts choose to forego the grade 8 exam versus other ones to say, let's really make our students shine and give them those foundational skills and test at that level. But if you could just speak to that a little bit, because it's from 19% to 40%. That's from one year to the next.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's the student populations. We have approximately between 95 and 100,000 students at every grade level. The students, the way the math test is structured, if a student is enrolled in middle school in a high school level class, so in Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2, they would not participate on the grade 8 test, but rather they would participate in that end of course test from our state ESSA plan. We have the waivers from USED. With that, we had over 30,000 students from 8th grade enrolled in a higher level math course. So our top 30,000 student performers that are currently in grade 8 did not take the grade 8 test. So we're knocking those top off, so that's why the data is skewed.
It's not an apples to apples comparison. So all 3rd graders take the 3rd grade test. All 4th graders take the 4th grade test. All 5th graders take the 5th grade test. Very few 6th graders don't take the 6th grade test. Very few 7th graders.
Giving us a clear picture of where our students are at, because it's a little bit off. Why wouldn't our Algebra 1 students, or students who are taking high school level math, not be able to take the grade 8 test if they are in the 8th grade? I think that would give us...
I'll let John answer, but I'm not so sure those students would be really high on taking another statewide assessment, taking 2 in that particular grade. And their teachers may also have concerns about that, but I'll turn it over to John.
So students in grade 8, the required tests that they have is they have the English language arts, mathematics, and science in grade 8. So they're already in for 9 hours worth of in a high school level math class. Because of federal accountability, they have to take a higher level math in high school in order to be able to use it for their high school testing requirement. For the tests that we offer, a student in Algebra 1 in grade 6 would be out of tests before they got to high school. So arrives in high school.
And that's a very, very small number of students throughout the state, in the hundreds.
Yes.
Board Member Bennett. Thank you.
Those awards from the federal dollars are going to the district?
They'll be going to the districts through a competitive grant opportunity,
Okay.
what we call a notice of grant or an NGO.
Will you be looking at what other programs being planned is research-based?
Yep.
And what the follow-up is to that training, to that exposure, in order to get the most effectiveness from it?
Yeah. No.
I attended as a community person a workshop 2 weeks ago geared toward early literacy and starting with how children acquire language, starting at as young as 2 months old, because they're hearing, they're looking at people's faces as they speak, and gradually language acquisition begins long before they ever hit school. And then how does it be presented, and how do teachers come to fully understand that children are not walking in as empty slates? They're walking in. Language is a part of what they've been hearing as long as they don't have the hearing challenge. So my concern is that the dollars that are available and how they're awarded are awarded in a way that we're making sure we're not duplicating something, but rather designing something for greater effectiveness. When I look through your packet and I see that the African American children in the data come up at the lowest end of the spectrum, what we're trying to do is design for effectiveness and not just more money, but that it enhances and integrates with what's already being done.
I appreciate the question. I think you're illustrating the complexity of early literacy, and the grant itself is birthed to grade 12, so it's really quite a comprehensive grant. But we're looking at developing these grants with an eye on how can we build the capacity that it is a process of sharing, not just developing your particular systems. So we have resources for screeners, we have resources for coaches, we'll have resources for a lot of things through this grant that are going to help build the capacity of those individual districts with the eye on how do we share that across the entire state. So I totally agree with you. The return on investment benefit from these dollars, and we're going to write the grants in that way.
I have another question. I don't see anyone else's hand up at this moment. So you had said excluding geometry and algebra 2 with the math scores when you gave them. And seeing that geometry, the mathematics score, did you take it out, or is it just tested separately?
It is a separate assessment.
It is a separate assessment. For everyone who's taking the class that year, or are they students taking it who had it in years past?
All students participating in the assessment should be enrolled in the course. That is the guidance we've put out to the districts for participation rates.
That year. So it is part of our curriculum in the department to help foster a growth in geometry.
We'll be talking a little bit later in the presentation about other ways that we are building capacity of teachers across all of the tested content areas, including what we call learning lounges, which are professional development opportunities that are offered free of charge. They're given by the experts at the department. They're done virtually, and any teacher that's interested can sign up. And we're doing them on a monthly basis also.
Okay. I just know it's very important.
Absolutely.
For students to garner the experience and do well.
Agreed.
Any other questions at this time from anybody?
Performance of disaggregated groups of students and how they performed on the 2024 NJSLA. This slide shows the aggregate ELA results when broken down by racial or ethnic groups. As we present the student demographic groups, we would like to acknowledge this is not a complete list of the demographics. The 4 being reported on, African American students, Asian students, Hispanic students, and white students, were selected because of their larger percentage of the New Jersey student population. While all student demographic groups are important, groups with a low student count have not been traditionally reported on at the public presentation of results, specifically the Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders, American Indian or Alaskan Native, 2 or more races, and other. All of our student groups demonstrated an increase in performance at around 0.9%. Our African American students demonstrated the greatest amount of improvement at a 1.9% increase, which exceeded the growth of the all-student group. Hispanic students demonstrated a 0.7% increase, white students a 1.0% increase, and Asian students a 0.3% increase, all when compared to the 2023 performance. In 2019, it is observed that the difference between the highest performing student group, our Asian students, and our lowest performing student group, our African American students, was 45.4%. This grew to 48.3% in 2022. Performance gap has returned to the pre-pandemic value. The fact that this gap exists is an indication there is a lot of work still to be done. The Rapid and Rapid Plus programs are designed to provide additional supports to the LEAs for improving the ELA outcomes. This slide shows the aggregate ELA results of economically disadvantaged students, multilingual learners, and students with disabilities. While economically disadvantaged students and students with disabilities demonstrated an increase in performance, our multilingual learners demonstrated a decrease from 2023 to 2024. All 3 groups are performing significantly below the all-student average. This slide shows the aggregate math results when broken down by racial or ethnic groups. All of our student groups demonstrated an increase in performance at 2%. Our African American and white students demonstrated improvement greater than our all-student group at 2.2 and 2.5% respectively. Our Asian and Hispanic students demonstrated performance increase less than the all-student average at a 1.4 and 1.9% respectively. Group, our Asian students, and our lowest performing student group, our African American students, was 54.8%. This grew to 56.7% in 2022, coming out of the pandemic. And in 2024, it is showing some closure at 55.8%. The performance gap is still larger than it was pre-pandemic. This slide shows the aggregate math results for economically disadvantaged, our multilingual learners, and students with disabilities on average. This slide shows the aggregate science results when broken down by racial and ethnic groups. New Jersey's African American students demonstrated a 0.5% increase, white students a 0.3% increase, Hispanic students demonstrated no change, and Asian students experienced a 0.2% decrease in proficiency from 2023 to 2024. The highest performing student group, our Asian students, and our lowest performing student group, our African American students, was 45.2%. This remained consistent at 45.0% in 2022, coming out of the pandemic, and continued to remain consistent at 45.4%. This slide shows the aggregate science results of economically disadvantaged students. Economically disadvantaged students demonstrate an increase of 0.4%. Students with disabilities has traditionally been shown as inclusive of students with a 504 for the science assessment, and that is demonstrated by the green line on the screen. In mathematics and English language arts, the students with disabilities group results are shown including students only with an IEP. The red dotted line displays the performance of students with disabilities, only including students with an IEP. What the data indicates is that the performance of students with an IEP has remained consistent since the launch of the assessment in 20 average. Madam President, at this time, we'd like to pause for any questions from the board.
Are there any questions at this time?
No, I think it's very clear.
From the people who are remote, are there any questions? Hearing none, thank you. We'll continue.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I
comment.
beg your pardon.
Sorry.
Board Member
Madam President.
Ponte, you have the floor.
Thank you. If you could make gaps. And in science, there's a 45.4% achievement gap. I just want to stress the point that it's extremely frustrating to know that after all the investments, the number of programs over the years, this achievement gap is persistent and still remains significant in terms of the gaps between the African American students, white and Asian students. What do we do moving forward? I mean, is there anything that we have not tried as of yet? It's just again, just frustrating for me to see that year over year, we struggle to close this gap.
So thing that I think since I've come here, I've been laser focused on, and we have an opportunity now. We're creating a new permanent office, and this came out of what we call the literacy bill package that was signed this past summer. Internally, and I think with some backing in that legislation, we are adding to that office an emphasis on this very issue, so that we have folks here at the department pulling all the strings that we can to address this each and every day. And I think that renewed focus is not only within that office, but gives us kind of a nexus point within the department to hone in on that and see what else we can possibly do. To your point, it seems like each and every year we talk about the things that we've tried or new ways to attack this problem, and so we really want to focus in on that. And I think Dr. Schiff alluded to this, but something that I've charged this new office to begin establishing within New Jersey is akin to what the U.S. Department of Education has, what they call it the What Works Clearinghouse, which is a Jersey-specific one for strategies and approaches that have worked in New Jersey schools, so that we can lean in on those. So when we identify a school or a district that is struggling in a certain area, we can, when we're doing this federal grant or we're doing other initiatives, we are also pulling out information on the approaches that have shown more success compared to those that are less successful, and focus in on those where we might get more bang for our buck, so to speak, but also to focus on those approaches that are shown to be more effective.
Thank you, Commissioner. We also have been working with the Rutgers Policy Lab for the past 2 years on identifying promising practices, in particular looking at disaggregated student groups and what type of practices have led to improved student studies, will help to inform the field of evidence-based promising practices based upon a New Jersey-centric approach to addressing the needs of students. There are areas within the state that we do see these gaps closing at a much more rapid pace than we do in other districts. And what we need to do is capture those practices, understand them, and replicate and incentivize the replication of those practices throughout the state, particularly in those districts that don't.
I think 30-something years ago, when charter schools began, they were to try different things and then bring it back to the public school system. I'm not sure that we meet nowadays to hear their results and where they've had success, but that's something else we should investigate.
Yep. And
In fact, it
the
also
Promising
has-
Practices Project, I'm sorry, Mr. Aponte, of the Rutgers study.
So in terms
We
of the
didn't
Rutgers
exclude them
study,
from the study, so practices are there, we'll replicate them.
I'm glad to know you're working with the Rutgers Policy Lab. That said, I also know that the Rutgers Cornwall Center also recently released a study on the Latinx community in New Jersey and their test results over the past year. So there's a new study out by the Cornwall Center, and I encourage you to take a look at, and happy to engage with Dr. Charles Payne there to maybe walk through some of the highlights of that study.
Yep. And Dr. Payne, Charlie, is part of this project. So
Great.
he's one of the lead researchers on the project.
Very good.
Great.
Very
Go
brief
ahead,
question. So there has to be a district or some districts that we can maybe call pockets of excellence with these, the special student groups, with the Latino groups, with the African American groups, special ed groups even that maybe did better. And I feel like this is very broad and I appreciate it because it gives us a nice snapshot.
Yep.
But I feel like it's important to look at those districts and just like we're saying, creating a clearinghouse or just reaching out and asking, what did you do? There has to be district.
Developing is going to be looking much deeper at the data to be able to predict where those schools are and help us to identify those practices.
Good.
and
Thank you.
replicate.
Maybe we
President?
could get a follow-up in several months about what you've learned by these meetings and what the state has garnered to try to help with the learning loss that we've encountered.
I think Promising Practices coming to a theater
Shortly.
soon.
Yeah.
So once we receive those results, and I think we've been able to digest them, I think we could do a similar presentation to the board.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you. I believe Board Member Bobrov has her hand up.
Can you hear me? Thank
Yes.
you. I think there is a major group with which we have not dealt at all, and that's in the parents or the caretakers of the children. So many families read to their children, every day when they're young, before they go to bed, etc. And these children have developed the beginning of language and then go on with it. But there are many, many parents in the groups that we're picking where the people themselves do not really know how to read. They're afraid to learn it. And maybe some instruction with parents is only wants to read something that's interesting. After a while, they get bored with it. But I think that would help a lot with groups as they come on, because people will be knowing that books should be in a home.
I agree that it's very, very important that parents partner with us as we continue to improve student outcomes and literacy. And part of the federal grant looks at community outreach and how we're working with parents as well. More details will be forthcoming on that.
Required that those results are shared back with parents as well. So that gives new information to parents directly on the performance of their own child. And I think it's twice a year. So they're going to have a better understanding of how their child is progressing with reading. So that's another component to connecting with families directly.
Thank you.
If I could just add, the parents are certainly one component, but certainly not the sole issue. I mean, certainly we're doing something over the years that have not benefited the broader population of these students who are underperforming. So, I don't want to put it just on the backs of the parents, and certainly there many parents who do read to their kids, and still the results show that they have not fared well in their assessments. And so we need to take a look at this, certainly from a much broader perspective, and try to address this head on as aggressively and urgently as possible.
Agreed. For results of the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment, or NJGPA. As a note, these data being presented will only include the spring grade 11 students. This will allow for a more direct comparison between the graduating classes. The NJGPA was intended to serve as the primary pathway for students to satisfy their graduation assessment requirement. The assessment is aligned to the English Language Arts grade 10 standards and the Algebra 1 and Geometry standards for the mathematics component.
In the 2024 administration of the NJGPA, 82.5% of students demonstrated graduation readiness in the standards in English Language Arts, and 55.6% of students demonstrated proficiency in the Algebra 1 and Geometry standards. This is an increase of 2% in ELA and 0.6% in mathematics compared to the spring 2023 administration. When reviewing the demographic and student group data, the trends observed in the English Language Arts component of the NJGPA are similar to the performance patterns and achievement gaps that were shown with the NJSLA. Looking first at the student demographic data, it is observed that Asian and white students performed above the all-student group, while African American and Hispanic students demonstrated proficiency below the all-student average. All groups demonstrated an increase in graduation readiness when comparing 2024 to 2023. Looking at the student groups, our multilingual learners, economically disadvantaged students, and students with disabilities, they all performed significantly below the all-student average. Again, all three groups, though, demonstrated an increase in graduation readiness when compared to 2023. When reviewing the demographic and student group data for mathematics, the trends observed are similar to the performance patterns and achievement gaps that were shown with the NJSLA. Looking first at the student demographic data, it is observed that Asian and white students performed above the all-student group, while African American and Hispanic students demonstrated proficiency below the all-student average. All groups demonstrated an increase in graduation readiness when comparing 2024 to 2023. Looking at our multilingual learners, economically disadvantaged students, and students with disabilities, all three groups performed significantly below the all-student average, yet all three groups demonstrated an increase in graduation readiness when compared to 2023.
We'll pause here again for any questions from the board, Madam President.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, please continue.
Thank you. The next assessment we will discuss is the Access for ELLs. Access stands for Assessing Comprehension and Communication in English State to State for English Language Learners. The Access assessments serve as New Jersey's English Language Proficiency Assessment. These yearly tests are required for all students identified as multilingual learners from kindergarten to grade 12. Access measures students' English proficiency using a scale that ranges from 1.0 to 6.0 in all of the domains assessed. A score of 1 can be thought of as a beginning score, while a 6 can be thought of as an advanced score. The assessments are administered to satisfy federal requirements under the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, for states to measure students' progress towards English language proficiency. Districts also use these results to determine multilingual learner student placement for the next school year. In New Jersey, a student must earn an overall composite score of 4.5 on Access for ELLs to first be considered for exit from a language instruction education program, or LIEP. The composite score is only one measure of readiness in addition to state standardized process, which includes other measurements. This slide presents the participation rates and percent of students by performance level for Access for ELLs assessment. The participation rates from the 2024 administration were very high, with all grades demonstrating a higher than 99% participation rate. The data shows that more kindergartners demonstrated level 1 performance than any other grade, which is expected as a large number of students enter the program in kindergarten. The data also shows increased performance at levels 5 and 6 for grades 4 and 5, which is also foreseeable, as it is estimated that students would take between 4 to 5 years to test out of the program. With the students starting in kindergarten and needing to achieve a composite score of 4.5 to begin the exiting process, these represent the students who are in the process of exiting. I'll pause again for any questions from the board. Seeing none.
Yes, sir. Please
Okay.
continue.
The next assessment program we'll discuss is the Dynamic Learning Maps, or DLM assessments. These alternative assessments in English language arts, mathematics, and science are designed for students with the most significant intellectual disabilities and are intended to be administered to no more than 1% of New Jersey students' population per the Every Student Succeeds Act. The DLM is a computer-adapted test. That means it is administered on a computer, and as the student progresses through the assessment, it will adopt to their individual skill level. Students are tested on what are called essential elements, which are grade-specific expectations about what students with the most significant intellectual disabilities should know or be able to do. For example, ordering events as first and next, or identifying angles as larger or smaller. The variability of students eligible to take the DLM assessment is extremely wide. About 1% of the student population meets the definition of having a significant intellectual disability. The criteria is as follows. First, the student has a disability that significantly impacts intellectual functioning and adaptive behavior. 2, the student is primarily taught using the DLM essential elements. 3, the student requires extensive, repeated, individualized instruction and support that is not a temporary or transient nature. 4, the student uses substantial adaptive materials and individualized methods of assessing information. And finally, the student's significant intellectual disability will impact post-school outcomes. The test is administered one-on-one. The classroom teacher is usually the test administrator, but other professionals with whom the student is comfortable can administer the assessment. The level of assistance a student receives when taking the DLM is connected to the support the student needs to access the assessment. For example, a student who is able to navigate the test platform by using a touchscreen, mouse, or adaptive switch can work fairly independently. Students with physical limitations who are unable to independently navigate the test platform but can indicate responses through an eye gaze or some other means have answers entered in by the classroom teacher. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Bozani, who'll go through the results.
This participation rate table shows that the participation remains high during the statewide assessment administration and just shy of what it was prior to the onset of the pandemic. For English language arts, this slide shows the percentage of students by grade for the ELA assessments on the dynamic learning maps. The DLM performance levels range from 1 to 4, emerging to advanced. As this assessment is an alternate assessment designed for those students with the most severe cognitive disabilities, having higher percentages of students in levels 1 to 3 is foreseeable. This slide reflects the DLM mathematics results. With the DLM offered in ELA math and science, this slide represents the science results. The performance mirrors what has been observed with the ELA and mathematics on the DLM. We'd like to take a moment to pause to respond to any questions on dynamic learning maps.
Board members, any questions at this time? Any of our remote members?
Are students permitted to remain in the program until they reach the fourth level? Is there a clearly delineated time that students should exit, but if they haven't reached the level of performance, can they remain?
The dynamic learning maps does not start an exiting procedure for this population of students.
So
they have the specific criteria established in order to be considered for the program, and this is just offered as an alternative to our general assessments.
The child study team would make that
So there would be
determination.
something
It would be in their IEP. Exactly.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let's take a step back to consider the data in the context of the larger system designed to support student performance and outcomes. This graphic will help us visualize the collaborative efforts and flow of information between the various stakeholders, emphasizing the role of our statewide standards and assessment system and the supportive role of the state. On the slide, you will see 4 key groups working in concert to improve student outcomes: teachers, school and district leaders, the New Jersey Department of Education, and parents and families. Each group interacts with the state assessment system and with each other to drive student achievement. First, student and parents are informed by the NJSLA results, understanding student performance, identifying strengths and areas for improvement. As a result, parents and students use the information to make decisions about learning supports and focus areas. Teachers are informed by the NJSLA data, using it to tailor instruction and interventions for individual and class-wide improvement. As a result, they adjust curriculum, offer remediation or enrichment activities, and align teaching with our standards. School and district leaders are informed by the NJSLA report, where they analyze performance trends across grades and schools, identifying professional development needs. As a result, they implement strategic plans to improve instruction, allocate resources, and provide support for teachers and students. And lastly, the department provides state support to LEAs through guidance, funding, professional development, and data tools to improve instructional practices and student outcomes. These supports provide districts with the resources to implement state standards with fidelity. The NJSLA system informs all stakeholders, and department supports enhance the entire process by empowering LEAs to take meaningful action for student improvement. The department is committed to helping students excel, and a number of initiatives and resources are designed to help local education agencies bridge the educational gaps created by the pandemic. You are acutely aware of the critical role that learning acceleration can play in addressing learning needs of our students, and the role the department plays in catalyzing those efforts through these and other projects. We have discussed a few of these programs earlier in our presentation. Established through legislation this August and mentioned by our commissioner, the Office of Learning Equity and Academic Recovery will be responsible for improving the department's capacity to make data-driven decisions, coordinate resources, and research best practices to support the creation of effective literacy, learning equity, learning acceleration policies, and professional development opportunities. This new office is being staffed currently and will be active in early 2025. The High Impact Tutoring Program has the potential to drive significant improvements statewide for almost 300 LEAs that were awarded the grant. This program will continue through the end of June, and more data will be shared by grantees in future reporting periods. To address gaps in science proficiency, the department collaborated with OpenSciEd to develop instructional and professional learning materials for science courses. Through this project, the department seeks to provide educators with access to free, coherent, rigorous, research-based set of instructional materials that will support all students in meeting the vision of science literacy defined in the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for Science. The department also provides regular technical assistance and professional learning to LEAs through the Office of Standards Learning Lounge series and other events. So how do these initiatives drive the gears of student achievement we explored earlier? At the department level, the installation of the Office of Learning Equity and Academic Recovery will drive state-level efforts advancing student outcomes. while the literacy working group will inform the work that the office, as well as the larger department-wide efforts in the service of literacy and academic recovery. Schools and districts leverage and enact programs and initiatives, including but not limited to the competitive grants like the High Impact Tutoring Grant, the CLSD grants, and curriculum materials from Open SciEd. Educators can access professional learning opportunities such as Rapid and Rapid Plus trainings and other NJSLS aligned professional learning. Lastly, projects such as the upcoming early literacy campaign underscore the importance of the role of parents and families in the context of student learning. Taken together, these initiatives, projects, and opportunities, such as the few we highlighted here, work in concert to improve student outcomes. The interactions are designed to offer multiple entry points and levels of engagement for key stakeholders to engage within the system and amplify these efforts. And this now concludes our presentation, and we welcome any additional questions or comments from the board.
Thank you for all of this data. It's incredible. It's something that hopefully will help our many districts look into what is happening at a state level on average, and then certainly delve into it in their districts. I find this fascinating, and I really appreciate all the work that went into it. Looking forward to hearing more as we get. I see that Dr. Butcher has his hand up. Sir, would you like to speak? And then Mr. Aponte's next. Dr. Butcher, are you muted?
Frozen.
Why don't we first go to Mr. Aponte, and we'll come back to you, Dr. Butcher.
Great.
Mr. Aponte?
Thank you, Madam President. If we could bring back up slide 34. So again, I want to recognize the department and applaud the department for all of these initiatives, which I think is fantastic in trying to improve student outcomes. But I also think the board needs to take a leadership role, particularly when it comes to closing the achievement gap. So I'd like to recommend, Madam President, that we form a task force or a subcommittee of the board to focus in on the achievement gap and work with the department to ensure that we are making progress and being informed of the progress the department is making when it comes to the closing the achievement gap initiative. So I'd like to recommend that maybe we have Dr. Johnson as Vice President of the board lead this task force or subgroup or subcommittee of the board. And maybe some of the other members of the board have certainly a lot of expertise on this board, including Dr. Keenan, Dr. Rick, board members, Bennett and Pena. We have a lot of experts on our board who have extensive experience, particularly working in urban districts, that I'm sure will add value to the discussion in working with the Department of Education on trying to continue to make some progress towards achieving or reducing the achievement gap.
Thank you very much. We will talk about that. That's great. Thank you. Dr. Butcher. Are we able to get Dr. Butcher online? I'm sorry, yes.
I just want to go back to Mr. Aponte's point. I think the state does a fantastic job. I do work in one of those quasi-urban districts, and I believe they do a fantastic job with the guidance and support that they give us, and especially with all these grants and stuff. So I think creating a task force would be redundant, and I think it would step on, Acting Commissioner Damer and his team's footsteps. I think we can monitor it from afar, but I think that's interrupting on day-to-day operations, and that should be something left to the Acting Commissioner to handle with his team.
Thank you.
if I could just respond to that, I certainly don't intend to step on the toes of the commissioner or the operation of the department. I want to enhance their efforts by providing what we have a responsibility to do as the State Board of Education, overseeing public education, to monitor and ensure that we're making progress towards priorities of the department. And so I want to supplement the work, and not disrupt and or prevent the department from its pursuit to help improve student outcomes or close the achievement gap.
Commissioner Damer, would you like to speak?
So I think it's an interesting recommendation. We'll President Goldenberg and I will talk about how we could structure that and how we could work together and collaborate on this. Because I think when you look at the data that was just presented, that's what stands out. It stood out for many years, and so that should be the point of our emphasis going forward. So much appreciated on that discussion point, and we'll continue to figure out how we push that forward going forward.
Thank you. Dr. Butcher, are you able to speak now? Dr. Johnson, are you able to speak at this time? Vice President Johnson?
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Hi. Would you like to continue, sir, with the meeting for the next agenda item, which is the appointments?
Were we going to go into recess or
No.
continue?
Just please, if you don't mind taking over for a few minutes.
Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. So I'm going to move into our items for consideration. The first one is for appointments. And today I'd like to present one candidate for appointment. That's Stephanie Kuntz, nominated for the position of Director for the Office of State Monitors, which is in our Division of Finance and Business Services. So Dr. Johnson, I'll turn it over to you for a vote.
Thank you.
I can go ahead if he doesn't.
Madam President, were you going to continue or are you heading?
Why don't I take this one and you take the next one with certification? Is that all right?
Okay.
Okay. So for the appointment, we have a recommendation of Stephanie Kuntz, the Director for the Office of State Monitors. We had the pleasure of meeting with her during our executive session and spoke with her and asked a few questions. I'd like to please ask for a motion to accept. Motion. Thank you. Thank you for that. For the accept Ms. Kuntz as the Director in the Office of State Monitors. There's a motion on the table. Second. And may I please have a second? Second. Thank you very much, sir. We have a second. And all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. And Dr. Johnson, it's all you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We're going to move now to item B, certification of school districts. Since the November State Board of Education meeting, the executive county superintendents have finalized 32 NJQSAC evaluations for districts. I'm recommending 6 of those for certification. Mr. Ambrose Duckett and Carlos Bates are here to discuss those. And why don't I read through the list of the 6 districts. These are the 6 that are being recommended for certification. In Bergen County, Leonia Public School District. In Camden, Eastern Camden County Regional School District. In Essex, the South Orange Maplewood School District. In Monmouth County, the Shrewsbury Borough School District. In Morris County, the Hanover Township School District. And in Salem County, Elsinboro Township School District. With that, I'll turn it over to the, to the Assistant Commissioner for any questions that you may have.
Please continue.
No questions?
We have a vote. May I please have a motion to accept the districts?
I think we have a question.
We have a question from Board Member Barry.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm looking at 32 reviews that were conducted. 6 are being recommended, which means 26 are not being certified. My question is, we had a great presentation where we just talked about high impact tutoring. Are we to assume then that the districts, these 26, just as an example this month, that are not being certified, will they all be receiving the high impact tutoring grants?
So the high impact tutoring grants is a competitive grant process that's not directly linked to this. I think we've talked, when we did the CUSAC regulations over the last several months, we talked about the different interventions that we provide. So as these are identified, the districts create an improvement plan in coordination with our county offices, and then additional resources are pulled from throughout the department to address that. But the high impact tutoring, there's overlap. Of course, we're talking 300 school districts that are receiving that, but that's not directly linked to the CUSAC. Those are two separate programs.
So will we be getting a report on the 6-month interim progress review? How are we seeing what progress these districts are making?
Do you want to answer that?
So the county offices conduct a 6-month interview, and during that review, they collaborate with the school districts, and the school districts present information based on their plan, what they were using to measure progress in a district or local capacity, and how that they're hoping that will reflect on the state assessments. So that's what's discussed at those interim reviews. And then as they have outcomes, they look to see if they've met any of them, or maybe if they need to change any of them at that time. You know, it's to further the growth, so it takes time, but we look to measure whatever the tool was to measure the outcomes that they're hoping to achieve, and to see that there's progress in that.
And that's handled through the county offices, through the district improvement plan, which is heavily scrutinized and discussed between curriculum directors, superintendents, and also ed specialists. And it depends on what area the district needs improvement on. As you can imagine, all the districts, the 26 that you mentioned, all needed improvement on instruction and program. There were 2 that had issues in finance, but all the districts needed some support in instruction and program. So they'll work with the county offices for that.
So some of those, I mean, there's a district that's 45%, and some of these are definitely low when we're looking at instructional programming. So I would just love to know, in a 6-month interim progress review, how much gains are we making in those districts on raising up those young people and making sure that certainly in instruction and programming, we're seeing an improvement?
That's dependent on the district and the individual work that they are doing, but also the collaboration. What you'll see is some of those schools with very low scores will have a high turnover in administration, so they'll go in a different direction, and then hopefully you will see an increase in scores. But there are some very low, and there's some that have just missed the cut score by 2 points. So, you know, we are talking about a broad range here when we're talking about instruction and.
Very good. Any other questions at this time? Hearing none, I'd like to. Did we do the motion for this?
Make a motion.
Thank you, sir. May I please have a second? Thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions before we vote? Hearing none. All those in favor to accept the districts that were mentioned independently, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions at this time? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Moving on to item C. Ambrose, don't go anywhere.
I'm not going.
Today I'm presenting for first discussion amendments to Chapter 32, which is school district operations. The proposed amendments are related to a state excused absence for civic events. As I mentioned, Mr. Ambrose Duckett is here, and joining him is Robert Gregory, who will go through those changes in more detail.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, Madam President Goldenberg, Vice President Johnson, esteemed board members, Commissioner. Today we wanted to highlight two proposed amendments to Chapter 32, school district operations, to ensure that the chapter reflects current New Jersey public laws and statutes related to state excused absences for students. As a quick review, Chapter 32 provides assistance to district boards of education and administrators regarding the daily operations of schools and school districts. Our proposed amendments, of which there are two, are to align the subchapter regarding state excused absence to Public Law 2023, Chapter 274, which was enacted in January of 24. It allows a public school student in grades 6 through 12 to have one state excused absence each year for the purpose of attending a civic event, provided the parent or guardian of the student provide written notice in advance, 5 days in advance of the absence and the student attending the civil event. Our proposal are in two areas in the chapter highlighted on the next two slides. And I'm just going to pause there. Are there any questions?
Thank you for that opportunity. Did you? Okay. Thank you for that opportunity. I think we're ready.
Okay, we'll continue. The first proposed amendment is 32.2.1, which provides definitions for terms used throughout the chapter. We're adding a proposed definition to the term civic event to mirror the definition in 18A 36-33.1, which reads, civic event, an event sponsored by a government entity, a community-based organization, or a nonprofit organization that incorporates elements of service learning whereby students learn and develop through an organized service. A civic event shall address an issue of public concern such as community health and safety, or environmental, economic, or community well-being. The second amendment is at the subchapter regarding student attendance, 32-8.4, and is specifically to add a number 7 to the list of state excused absences, of which there are currently 6. The proposed amendment is bolded in the last sentence of the slide and permits a state excused absence once per year for students who attend the civic events in grades 6 through 12. As in the past, district boards of education can establish student attendance policies that allow for locally defined excused absences that extend beyond NJAC 6A 32-8.4E. And with that, are there any questions, comments?
I have a question, if I might, sir, and you
Yes,
might have
please.
said this, and I apologize if I think I heard it in a committee meeting perhaps, but civic events, are they limited to once a week, once a month, once a year, or once a quarter? What are we thinking?
Once per year.
Once per year.
One civic event per year that has to be pre-approved.
Is that anywhere in this? So it's defined?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Think it's
Oh, I
slide
see.
3.
Up to 1 day per year for students in
Yes.
6 through 12.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other matters you want to? Okay. Thank you very, very much. I hope all of you have a tremendous holiday season and make memories with your families. And I would like to please ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. May I have a
Madam
second?
President,
Thank you. I heard something, but I don't know from whom. Dr.
this
Johnson?
is Dr. Yes, I was having some problems technically, and I just wanted to weigh in on Mr. suggestion from earlier. And I'd be willing to participate and active and if possible. We've been talking sense of urgency, lost for the last few years. So whatever way the commissioner and his office would like for us to participate, I'd be more than willing to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Any other comments at this time?
We'd just like to thank Dr. Johnson for his willingness to lead this effort.
Thank you. Motion has been made to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, we need a second. I beg your pardon. Thank you. Yes, I thought, okay, thank you. Okay. Aye, I heard an aye. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed, please say nay. Have a wonderful rest of 2024. Thank you very, very much. That's okay. I believed you. I always believe.